Like, he was doing things that were just badass.
That was one of the coolest moments of my life.
I was really scared, but knowing that Dan had the gun, I did have the rifle, like, we would be okay.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. And on today's show, I've got a guy who I've been following for years now. He actually kind of inspired me to get into podcasting, so it's cool to be on with him. But this is Dan Johnson. I started listening to him on Wired to Hunt podcast probably 3 years ago, and he's blown up since that first episode I listened to. And so thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for listeners who may not know you or may not be familiar with the work that you're doing, could you give a brief description of who you are, what you're currently involved in?
Yeah, so first and foremost, before we go anywhere, I have to say I am in a very positive mood today, very awesome mood, because today is the first day of school and there's no kids in the house right now. And I'm freaking jacked about that. So finally, and I say that because I'm a father first, and all summer long I was doing basically playing daddy daycare. And today I am 50% done with all the work that I have to do. And it's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon where I'm at. And I have some other things to do, but then I don't even know what I'm going to do with the rest of my night.
Man, you're going to have to like take up yoga or like some weird activity.
Right. So that's what I do first and foremost, take care of the kids. But now that school's on, I can really put all that focus and energy back into the Sportsman's Nation. That's a podcast network that I own and run. And my other podcast that I host, the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast that I host, and then the Hunting Gear podcast, which is all about hunting gear and equipment, and then the Iowa Hunt and Fish podcast as well.
Man, you've got your hands full. I'm struggling with one podcast, and you've got a whole network and like 12 more of your own.
Yeah, it's fun, dude. I just love talking to people about really anything outdoors, even things that I don't personally do. Like, let's just say I fish a little bit, but I don't fish a lot. I don't trap at all. But what I really love through all those podcasts, even if it's something that I don't do or I don't find passion in, I would say, I love talking to people who have the same passion for trapping that I do for whitetails. And you can really connect with that passion and just have awesome conversations.
Oh yeah. My wife always jokes if we're in a room, she's like, I feel like you could make friends with a rock. I'm like, well, if the rock is into the outdoors, I absolutely could. And that's why I started this whole thing, is I just wanted to connect with people, hear stories, same type of thing, passion. I'm not big. I mean, I fish, but I'm not like a crazy fisherman, but I've had guys on the show that, I could feel their energy through my speakers. And it's some of the best podcasts that I've had, just hearing people who absolutely love what they do with the outdoors. And so tell me this, how did you first get into podcasting?
Well, I invited Mark Kenyon down for a shed hunt down in Iowa one day. He came from Michigan and we did some shed hunting that weekend. And then before he left, he asked me, this was, before the Wired to Hunt podcast was even started, if I wanted to be the co-host of the show. And I said, yes, hey, I'll give this podcast thing a try. And so I was the co-host, man, up until about, I don't even know how long it's been since I haven't been, I guess, regular on his show, but the first, I don't know, 2 years I was the co-host on the podcast. And then I'd say about 6 months, maybe after the Wired to Hunt podcast started, 6 months to a year, I started the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast. And then from there, it really just snowballed into the network and to all these other podcasts. So
that's cool. So like I said, I'm behind a little bit because I'm still listening to episodes that you were on the Wired to Hunt podcast. So I don't know any new stuff. You had gotten into elk hunting at that point.
Yep.
You got new properties to hunt, which I think you're kind of constantly in a cycle of trying to find new properties to hunt. Do you have your own property that you hunt yet? I know you always talked about that.
Yeah, no, man, that's something that is high on my list of things someday to be a landowner, right?
Yep.
Land prices in Iowa right now are absolutely crazy. So you just got to keep saving, and hopefully you can find the right piece that pops up to do that. But as of right now, it's all public and permission type hunting for me.
Nice. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We keep talking about buying just a small plot of land, even if it's like 5 or 10 acres. I know my buddy bought some last year. It's 10 acres, but he had a bunch of really good deer just passing through during the rut. And I was like, man, it would just be cool to like harvest a deer on your own property. There's something about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's definitely a goal I see in my future, but who knows how far down the line that is.
Yeah. What's hunting look like? I think I'm probably 2 seasons behind on any updates that you've got. What did the last couple seasons look like for you?
As far as whitetails are concerned, very good. This guy here, I got him. And then this guy, I don't know if you can see him, this guy down there, that guy.
Yep.
I'm on a streak. I'm like 5 years in a row. I've been able to successfully harvest some really good deer here in Iowa. As far as elk, I haven't killed an elk yet. Elk the last 2 years has been put on the back burner. I've kind of fallen in love with mule deer hunting, like spot and stalk mule deer hunting. Yep. So I've been going out to the Nebraska and the Dakotas to try to, run into something. I'm not too terribly focused on antler size like a lot of people are. I honestly just want to shoot a mule deer so I can say I'm multi-species. I'm a multi-species hunter. So
yeah, that's cool. I had the best year of my life a couple of years ago. My wife and I planned a trip to Alaska for our 5-year anniversary. And I was like, man, I want to hunt a blacktail on Kodiak Island. That would be amazing. And then I started thinking about it. We lived in Colorado at the time. I was like, man, I could potentially get a blacktail, a whitetail, a mule deer, and an elk all in 1 year. And I was like, I don't even care about the elk. I just want those 3. And I started out, went to Alaska, first day, shot a blacktail. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Cloud 9, came back to Colorado, and I ended up tagging a bull elk and a mule deer on the same day. And I was like, this is the greatest year ever. And then we moved back to Missouri, and I ended up shooting 2 bucks there. And I was like, I just need to be done hunting. I've killed every animal that I've ever wanted to. And she's like, you're not going to be done. You're going to be ready to go again next year. So mule deer hunting, it's a different world, man.
Just throw more gas on the fire.
It does. Yeah. Everyone's like, man, you're accomplished now. And I'm like, well, I'm more lucky than I am accomplished. And all but the whitetails were taken with a rifle. And so I'm like, now I need to start over and go through it all with a bow. Because when I lived in Colorado, I was like, man, it was a 3% success rate with a bow for a bull elk. And I was like, that's rough. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'd rather get out with a rifle and learn how to hunt these animals first, and then come back with a bow and do it. And so that's my goal next year.
Yeah.
All the
stories, right?
Oh yeah.
The stories. It's like, I don't know about you, but you tell a story about a rifle hunt, and then you tell a story about a bow hunt. Those bow hunt stories just, they hit just a little bit harder. You know what I mean? There's something about a good bow hunting story that takes the cake.
Yeah. I mean, when you can smell the animal that you're hunting, it makes it a whole lot different. When you're that close to an elk. When I tell my elk hunting story, I'm like, man, I shot this elk from 330 yards away. Like, no, it didn't know it. I was there, but I almost didn't know it was there either. Like, I just kind of got lucky. Bow hunting is, now that I'm back in Missouri, that's become my number one passion again. My wife actually got me a new bow for my birthday, and I'm shooting it like crazy. So I'm pumped. I think we only have like 20 days till our season starts.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm getting fired up. I got 3 weeks until I head west for some mule deer. And I'm just like right now refining my gear, shooting my bow, buttering up the wife, all that good stuff.
Getting all those honeydews done.
Point.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know how that goes. One person mentioned on a video of mine, and they said, listen, bring your wife Chick-fil-A all the time and she'll let you hunt whenever you want. I was like, that's a good idea. I'm just going to Chick-fil-A, Starbucks cards, and Target trips, and she'll be a happy camper.
Right. Yeah. How many kids do you have?
I've got 2. I've got a 3-year-old girl and a soon to be 5-year-old boy. And like, let's see, 8 days, he'll be 5.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So it's, it just gets crazier. I got 3 kids, and, you can butter them up, as much as you want, but when you're 4 days into a 10-day trip and you get that text that's like, when are you going to be home?
Yep.
Yeah. The brownie points, the trips, the Starbucks, none of that matters at all anymore.
Nope. I know exactly how you feel. I just got back from another trip to Alaska. Me and 2 guys that I know, we went up there, did a bunch of fishing, and it was the same thing. My wife was like, oh, I'm so happy for you. Like you get to go up and just hang out. And she's like, how long is this trip? And I'm like, 11 days. And she's like, okay, I'll be good. Like I've got my mom and my sister and my grandparents, everybody here. And I just get like the face palm emoji a couple days in. And then my trip just wasn't as enjoyable after that. I was like, oh man, when she's back home stressed out, I can't fully enjoy myself at all.
Right. Yeah.
But I brought back a bunch of fresh fish. So I think she's happy with me now.
Good deal.
When you're going on these mule deer hunts, you said this is kind of your new passion. Are you taking any type of decoy? I know they make those silhouette decoys now that attach to your bow, or you can stock up, or are you just going like straight primal?
Yeah, man. I've been told to buy one. I just haven't done it. I might pick one up before I go in 3 weeks, but the last 3 times I've been mule deer hunting, I didn't use a decoy. I'm basically just sitting up high at the highest vantage point, glassing, watching them, trying to move into the same drainages that they're in, and surprise them via spot and stalk, or try to wait for them at night to come out of the draws up into any type of ag field, or where they're feeding at night, or trying to catch them coming back into the drainages or bedding areas, and just trying to find a way to intercept them. And I am getting my butt kicked by mule deer these last couple of years, but every time I go out there, I learn something different, and it puts me in a better position, to the point where this past December, when I went out on my second South Dakota trip of the year, I got closer and closer every time I did a stalk, to the point where I finally drew back on a buck, but he saw me and took off. So I don't want to say I'm overconfident, but I'm confident now, knowing what I've learned in the past couple of years, that when I go in September, or I go back to some of these places in October as well, that I'm just going to be that much more educated and that much more, closer to getting the job done on a mule deer.
Man, that is awesome. I think spot and stalk is one of the coolest things ever. I mean, I grew up in Wisconsin, being a whitetail hunter, sitting on a 5-gallon bucket upside down on a hillside or on a dead log. But now that I've experienced Western big game hunting, I'm like, man, it's awesome. I mean, it's a rush. Like once you see them and then you start pursuing it, it's way different. But I will say archery whitetail still has to be my favorite at this point. Maybe that'll change if I take my bow out west, but where does that stack up for you right now?
Yeah. Whitetails is always going to be number one. I mean, I live in the Mecca, right? Of whitetail, the whitetail game in Iowa. And as of right now, I still have some pretty good land that I can hunt. But there's just, after elk hunting and after mule deer hunting, you really do get to witness how special whitetails are. And what I mean by that is, after hunting these mule deer, I get to see how, I don't want to say stupid, but more relaxed they are for the most part around human presence.
Yeah.
Like, for what I've kind of witnessed is whitetails, they don't take any chances. They are, if they smell you, they're gone. If they see you, they're gone. Even in a state like Iowa, where some people would argue that, you know, it's lower pressure than states, let's say like Michigan or Pennsylvania or New York or places like that. But you hunt in an environment where you see whitetails and mule deer in the same areas, and you see how skittish a whitetail is compared to a mule deer. And a mule deer is just a little bit more relaxed. So the way I look at it is, man, if you can become successful bow hunting, especially a whitetail deer, and I guess doing it consistently, that's something special.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I totally agree. And then on top of all that, with hunting whitetail, you have like the trail camera and the habitat management and improvement. And like, there's so many facets to it, where I feel like Western big game hunting, it's like you can get good at spot and stalk, you can learn the wind, you can learn their movement. But as far as like documenting the same animals over and over all year long, finding their sheds, like it's almost non-existent.
Yeah. It's tough to do. I know guys who follow certain mule deer and certain elk on a yearly basis, but nothing compared to the amount of people who do it on a annual basis, you know, with whitetails, especially if people have the ability to plant food plots and hold deer on their properties. That's something that I don't have the ability to do, because I don't plant food plots, or I don't have the ability to plant food plots or do any type of habitat management. So like, my style is really kind of just go to the deer and not wait for the deer to come to me.
Yeah. As far as like documenting deer, where are you at right now? Have you had trail cameras out for the summer? Do you have any big bucks that you're hoping to catch up with this year?
Yeah. So there's one particular deer, and I won't know probably until this weekend when I go to check cameras, if he's around or not. I got another. So basically right now I have 2 deer that are returning customers as far as being able to document them. Not last year, but the year before, I found a couple good sheds. I believe one of the antlers that I found is to a buck that I just got trail camera pictures of a couple weeks ago. And he's going to be a stud this year. And I haven't checked my trail cameras yet on another farm, but if there's a buck I passed not last year, but the year before, he was a really good 11 pointer. And I passed him thinking he was a 3-year-old or a younger deer. And he showed up the next year. He blew up. I didn't get an opportunity at him last year. So I'm kind of hoping he shows up again this year, and I can make a move on him, especially with this crop rotation that we're currently in. And that it's all laid out to where I might have a possibility or an opportunity to, draw back on him, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've got it kind of dialed in there, five seasons in a row, coming out on top, finding success with your bow. Have you changed at all your, I guess, requirements for deer that you're taking now? It seems like, I mean, you're figuring it all out. So have you bumped the age structure up at all, or are you still sticking like 4.5-year-old?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately I would love a 4.5-year-old or older, but for me, it's more about the experience. So if I shoot a deer, it's because he got me excited, and it's not necessarily because of the age class. It's not necessarily because of the antlers, or if I have history with that deer or not. If I'm in the right, it's all about mood at that exact moment for me. So if a deer walks by and it gets me going, "Ooh, buddy," I'm going, I'm gonna draw back and throw an arrow at him. So, I typically don't ever go, "Hey, I'm only hunting one deer or bust." I have a little bit of a hit list that I put together every single year. Sometimes I shoot the deer on the list, sometimes I don't. And it's just, again, at that moment, what I'm feeling like. And I don't know.
How many of these bucks that you're after, do they stay on the property for a good portion of the year? Do they show up sporadically? Is it more rut traveling deer, or how does that look for you?
It's different every year. I'd like to say there's some kind of consistency, but one thing that I've noticed is the properties that I hunt are really good during the summer months. They hold a ton of deer. There's a ton of vegetation in there, especially at, ground level. The habitat's there, the cover's there, the food's there, the water's there. So it makes it ideal for summer, like the summer months. Now, something happens in September, and you hear people talk about this September shift all the time, where the velvet comes off. There is a jockeying for position. This is when, like, the dominant bucks flex their muscle and they're going to go where they want. And they're going to, so there's this redistribution of, like, bucks, right? So they're not being as friendly anymore. They're jockeying for position. They're trying to find the best cover so that when the rut comes, they are going to get their first crack at the first breedable doe. So one thing that I've noticed on the properties that I hunt is there's a big redistribution. And sometimes the big bucks stick around and they're there all through October. And sometimes they leave and then only come back for, a week or so, a 5-day period during the rut. And then other bucks come and go. So what really makes my farm kind of special, or some of the farms that I hunt kind of special, is there's good water systems, creeks and waterways and terrain features in these that let deer kind of cycle through, check doe bedding areas, and they work these big circles. And I just kind of put myself into the best possible position based off of historical information, based off of wind direction, terrain features. What is this doe group doing right over here, and how can I use that knowledge to put a stand in there to where a buck can follow them, let's say in October, or be looking for them in November.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's cool to see all the different things that are factoring into your hunts. But then you're still able to somehow take all of it, compile a game plan, and execute on it year after year. It's funny to talk to people who don't hunt or are just getting into hunting, and you like talk through different scenarios with them, and they're like, well, wait, you said not to do that. And you're like, well, one little thing changed. And so now that is the best thing to do. And they're like, wait, this doesn't make sense, but you can't figure it out until you've done it and failed and tried and failed multiple times.
Failure, man. A failure is the best thing for any hunter who wants to get closer to deer. And you fail, and then you learn from it, and then you take that information and you apply it to your next hunt, and you hope it doesn't happen again. So
I worked for a company out in Colorado, and the family that ran the company, one of their number one mottos was fail forward. They're like, if we fail, we're failing forward every time, and we're going to learn from it and continue to grow. And there's not many things that apply more to hunting than that right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you just learn more from failure than you do success. You could be lucky and have just the right deer on the right day walk under your stand, but if you pretend that it's going to happen like that every time, you're going to get upset pretty quick in the hunting world.
Right.
So I want to go back to the deer on the wall behind you.
Okay.
What are these deer that you had tracked in the past and you had names for them? Because some of the names will ring a bell for me. But I just, like I said, I'm not up to date to know which ones you've taken now.
Yeah, these deer back here are, I don't know if, I think there's one buck up there I named Bulldog. It's this one right here, just because the trail camera pictures that I got of them when I was, like right before that season started, his neck was already huge, and he looked like a bulldog just kind of walking through the timber. And so other than that, I had some history with him. No history really with any of the other deer that I shot, except for this buck right here. And I found his shed while shed hunting in the spring of 2018. And then I ended up killing him. And well, I'll back up even. I had trail camera pictures of this buck right here. And he was this beautiful 3-year-old. And I said, oh man, I do not want to hunt this deer, because if, I know where he's going, I'm just going to stay out of there, because I don't want to be tempted with, with shooting him.
Yeah.
And season goes on, and I shot a different deer that year. And so I find his shed to that deer in the spring of 18. And then the spring of the fall of 18, I'm having trouble locating a deer on the other side of this farm. I was hunting a couple really big deer, and they just disappeared. And instead of putting all my eggs into one basket, I said, hey, I'm going to go to the complete opposite side of the farm, and I'm just going to see what's there. So I had trail cameras pictures of this buck in September in velvet still. It's like one of the first days of September. And then I had trail camera pictures of them across the road in a field previous years. And then where I found his shed, right? So I drew a line on a map from where I got the trail camera pictures through where I found his shed to the other trail camera pictures. And I set up halfway in between those two spaces, and in a really good terrain feature. And as luck would have it, he popped out that night right after it quit raining. And I put an arrow through him, and took me 2 days to find him, but got the job done. And yeah.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I there's something about stories like that where you're like, you
Yeah.
just, if you take a second and think logically, like you said, you drew a line on a map, and you're like, he's obviously traveling here to here, so I just have to intercept him somewhere.
Yeah.
And then when it comes together, that's awesome. On a different note, I like to ask people, if you could hunt anything, like, do you have a bucket list item that you're hoping to go and experience at some point? A type of hunt, a type of weapon, and then also a location?
Yeah. So if we're going to, play the hypothetical game here, mule deer and elk right now I have access to that pretty easily.
Yeah.
I'm actively mule deer hunting, and I was actively elk hunting, but I didn't draw the Wyoming tag this year. So I decided to not elk hunt that year, and I'm going to mule deer hunt. But outside of that, I want to kill an antelope, obviously with my bow. But the dream hunts are like the Yukon River float trip, where you pull off onto these big rock sandbars, and during the moose rut, and you try to call a moose in, or you're hunting grizzly bear country, hunting for moose or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so that's a big dream of mine as well. But then also is caribou. I want to go on some kind of big tundra type caribou hunt in some way, and definitely hunt a caribou with a bow as well. So those are two dream hunts that I have.
Yeah. I can agree with you 100% on those two hunts. I tell everybody my number one is a Yukon moose. I want to do a fly in, float out hunt. It doesn't matter how far the float is. Preferably it'd be like a 200-mile float, and you just pull off on the side, maybe get up on a small knob and just call and wait and see what happens. I was fortunate to go on a moose hunt with a buddy in Colorado a couple years ago. He drew a moose tag, and it was a lot of fun, just the scouting of it. But I don't know if the moose in Alaska are as dumb as the moose in Colorado. Those moose in Colorado, they're just not scared of you at all. I mean, we stood 40 feet from 3 cows and they just sat there eating the whole time. Didn't seem phased at all. But yeah, Yukon moose is where it's at.
Yeah. And that meat that comes with a moose is like, it's like a year and a half worth of meat right there, right?
Oh,
you don't need to, like, if I shot a moose, I'd probably have to buy 2 more deep freezes.
Yep. Yeah, he gave some meat to all the different people that came out on the hunt with us. But it was crazy. We cooked up the moose tongue and the heart that night when he shot one, and the tongue and the heart alone fed like 5 people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm like, those are cuts that most people don't take off of any animal. And you know, we could feed that many people with it, but those quarters are heavy.
I believe it.
It was crazy. So yeah, I like that. I like that idea for bucket list hunt. What are you doing this year? What are you changing up this year that maybe is different from what you've done in the past? Have you learned any new strategies or tactics that you're trying to implement?
Man, this is where we can really go off into some muddy, deep waters, right? As far as what I'm doing, I mean, it's simple. I'm going September mule deer hunt, October mule deer hunt, and then I'll be back in Iowa for the rut. But as far as strategy is concerned, and I'll stick to, I guess would be my bread and butter, which would be whitetails. I only make decisions based off of experiences that have happened to me, right? There's a lot of people out there who listen to a podcast, or they're watching a video, or they're trying to watch strategy or listen to strategy, tactics, tips, and trips, when I may give out a bit of advice on my podcast about how to hunt deer or something like that. But you should only take away the principles of that type of information, not actually do what I'm doing on my farm, because I've never hunted the properties that you hunt. So I would expect to do something different, the same as if you would come on to the properties that I hunt. You would have to learn different nuances of how each property lays, whether it's aggressive terrain, whether it's flat, whether it's river bottom ground, whether it's big woods, whatever, right? So as far as my strategy for whitetails is concerned, really it's just fluid, and it's just, there's not one strategy that I take into the timber with me. It's years of failing. It's years of doing things wrong. It's years of doing things right, that all come in to the decision-making that I'm doing on every single hunt that I go, both morning, night, preseason, rut, late season, all that stuff.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, whitetails are kind of property independent. Like, you're not going to hunt the same type of deer every location. There are certain principles that come away or with whitetails that you have to follow. But as far as the strategy of putting it together, it's different every time. Like where I hunt, it's about 200 to 250 acres, but I have no pressure to the north, no pressure to the east or west. And there's one hunter to the south on 400 acres. And so it's like, I try to tell my friends and they're like, oh man, it's going to be really tough to get these deer. And I'm like, honestly, they don't have a lot of pressure. And the times that they see people, it's me walking out to check trail cameras, or I'm down by the pond fishing or something like that. And I don't want to say that these deer are completely used to me, but I'm out there a couple times a week. And so they know I'm there.
Yeah.
They're still coming in front of my trail cameras within hours of me being out there checking the cards. I get crap from a lot of people about this, but I don't do a whole lot of scent control at all. If I'm hunting, I play the wind. But even when I'm checking trail cameras, I feel like these deer are so used to the way I smell that it just doesn't phase them anymore. Now, if somebody else came in with a whole different smell, they might associate it with danger or a person or whatever. But because I'm out there all the time, that's just kind of my tactic. And even hunting, I don't spray down. I don't use a different washing machine for my clothes. Like, I live in a 600 square foot house. I don't have room for 2 washing machines,
Yeah.
But
yeah, man, it's different for everybody, you know, and I think a lot of it comes back to what people are confident with, right? Your scent control strategy, the way you do it, you're confident with that. Right?
Yep.
The way I do my scent control strategy, I'm confident with it. Other people who I know, you know, they're the guys who they dress at the truck, you know, don't wash it in the same washing machine. They have this very unique way and very detailed way of how they do their scent control strategy. Meanwhile, guys like me and you are kind of just like, whatever, right? Play the wind. I use an ozonics to clean my clothes, like dry wash my clothes. And then an ozonics in the tree with me as well, which I've had some really good, you know, experiences with that. And I feel confident doing it that way. And, you know, it's all about what you feel confident in.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, once you get your own system down, there's no one way to kill a whitetail. And it's funny because you listen to the professionals like on all these different podcasts, and you'll hear one guy and he's like, this is how you do it. The next guy says a totally different thing, but you just have to figure out what works for you, what works in your area, and what you're confident doing, like you said. So, man, the season's coming up quick. How long before your whitetail season kicks off?
Yeah, so October 1st is when Iowa opens.
Okay.
So I guess it depends, because I could be hunting whitetails in Nebraska and South Dakota because those tags are good for any deer. So I can shoot a whitetail or I can shoot a mule deer. But I'm going to be actively hunting mule deer. Yeah. But Iowa doesn't open up until October 1st.
Okay. Are those tags over the counter tags, or did you have to draw them?
In Iowa?
No, for South Dakota and Nebraska.
Yeah. So you have to put in an application for South Dakota, and I believe Nebraska is over the counter.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. We've got our hunts starting in Missouri in middle of September. We don't have any mule deer here, but the whitetail kicks off then. Dove opens up before that. I like to hunt everything. I know some people are diehard about one thing, but I'm like, man, I get way more excited about archery whitetail than anything else. But if I could only hunt archery whitetail, that'd be tough. I'm like, I got to be outside. I got to be pursuing something all the time. But yeah, we've got that. And then I've got to hunt out in Colorado. I'll be taking some guys out that have never hunted Colorado before, and we're going to go out for elk. I drew a mule deer tag, and then we'll probably get an over-the-counter bear tag as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I got a buddy out in Colorado who's going elk hunting and is going to take a bear tag too. And that's where I kind of cut my teeth on elk hunting, was out in Colorado. And man, that's hard out there.
It's not easy at all, man. I know some guys who are the guy who first introduced me to elk hunting, and I never went with him, but I just heard stories growing up. He owns the property I hunt in Wisconsin for whitetail. And he goes out by himself. He's a dairy farmer, sells his cattle every year, goes out and archery hunts elk for a month by himself. And I mean, he's probably close to 60 years old now, still does the same thing. And I hear the stories, and he's like, man, you might be within 12 yards of it, but you can't even move because of all the eyes on you. And that's when the passion for elk hunting started with me. But I still haven't gotten out to watch them bugle in your face with a bow in hand.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So, well, hey, I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time today. I appreciate you coming on, and I want to give you an opportunity to share with everybody, where can they find what you're doing? How can they connect with Sportsman's Nation, Nine Finger Chronicles, all that?
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's Nine Finger Chronicles. You can go to iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts, and you can find the Nine Finger Chronicles, the Hunting Gear podcast, and then, or you can just type in Sportsman's Nation, SPORTSME' Nation, and you can find all of the podcasts that are on the Sportsman's Nation network, and Facebook and Instagram and all that good stuff, and hit me up.
Very cool. I want to give you the last word. I call this segment emptying the chamber. If you have anything to share with the listeners, now's the time to do so.
Yeah, man. I'm just a big, like I'm a guy who I choose experience. A lot of people will, how do I put this? A lot of people will dictate their success based off of a number, like inches of antler or age class, or maybe even weight or whatever of the animals that we're harvesting. But at the end of the day, none of that really matters, in my opinion. It's about the experiences, because when I look at these deer behind me on the wall every morning when I wake up and every night before I go to bed, I'm not thinking of the score or the weight or the age. I'm thinking of the memory, it was 20 degrees outside. It was a north wind. It just finished snowing, or whatever that memory is, and that experience. And so like life is about the experience and who you experience those experiences with. It's experiences and people, and not like records or numbers or crap like that. So go out and have as much fun as you possibly can.
That's awesome. And it looks like you're having a ton of fun there, especially now that the kids are back in school.
Oh, buddy. I'm fired up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate you hopping on the call with me. I'll have to shoot over some pictures on Instagram and share some stuff with you. I've been getting some cool deer. I've got one deer that looks like a reindeer. I mean, it has just gnarly junk coming off every direction. And from what the landowner says, it's got a twin. One last year had a chocolate rack, one had a white rack, and he saw them at the same time. So I'm like, man, if I could catch up with either of those, that'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you this season. I appreciate it again, and we'll stay connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.